Yeah, we were in implicit objects, right? So in these implicit objects, we have seen out. So out is something which is used to print something on the response, right? Where we have used the out. Out is an implicit object, which is a direct object being provided by a Java, which is an object of type called JSP writer. In the same way, request we have seen to read some data, which is actually getting out from the query string. Like if you want to read any query string data, we will be using a request object. So this request is something which is a direct object of your HTTP servlet request. Right? Now you can see that we are actually getting this as a page. Whatever things are running in a page, whatever you are actually writing inside a page in a scriptlet or expression or declaration, anything, not declaration, sorry, expression or scriptlet, right? So everything works inside your JSP service. You can see everything works inside your underscore JSP service, because JSP service is something which triggers each time any user requests for the page, right? It will create a new thread. So that new thread, all these things is taken care of by your JSP service. That's why whatever writing will be written inside your JSP service in your page servlet, where you are getting something called servlet request and servlet response. So that's why we are saying we are actually getting the direct object of request and response to. Right? So we have seen that request part and the response, and we just checked how the response is different. Response tag is different from the anchor link. Right? In anchor link, how to send on that day, if you remember, we were facing some issue when we wrote this page2.jsp, right? And whatever username and password we are retrieving, we try to pass it to the other page, right? Using the anchor link, right? So we just took a separate string over here, where I'm preparing my own query string, which means I'm rewriting the query string. This is URL rewriting, right? Rewriting the query string, and we are preparing our own key and values for a query string, and we just sent it through the anchor link to this page, right? So let me run this page once. So yeah, we should be in our index.jsp, right? So let me open that index.jsp. JSPs. So this is my index.jsp. So here, so let me give you some username and password. Click on go. Okay, now you can see everything got in here, and when I click on go here, now it will go to page 2. Now you can see that our URL is being rewritten by our JSP. Okay? So we have seen that using anchor link and also using a this path, which is response.servlet. So response.servlet will not wait for any confirmation. It will directly move to the page if things are okay, right? Response is like directly getting some request and sending it out to someone else, right? Based on the validations, right? We'll be sending these things to other pages, right? So let me go back to index again. Now if you give ABC and 1, 2, 3, because we have taken a validation like username is ABC and password 1, 2, 3, right? When I click on go, now you can see that it will directly go to page 2, which is it is successful. And if it fails, right? Let's say if you are giving anything else, right? Now you can see login failed, where we are actually validating this as a validation JSP. So never use, sometimes you may have to use this JSP as an intermediate validation page, but yes, most of the time try to use servlet for that, okay? Because servlet is something which you are actually directly getting, a service method, and you can validate it, and from there you can actually redirect to any JSP you want. Right? Because if you are using JSP, again it has to paint everything. You don't need that. Okay? You don't have to actually use HTML scriptlets and all to do that. Okay. So validation part you can go for servlets. So this was the response thing which you have seen. Right. Now let us go with the config. Now this config implicit object is a direct object of servlet config. Right. Now the question here will come that we are actually into JSPs, and where does this servlet config comes up, right? So as we know that JSP internally is a servlet, right? So JSP completely works on a servlet container. If servlet container is not there, even your JSP will not be, you will not be able to run your JSP. But yes, you can run your HTML. That is a different story. So if you want your JSP to run, which means if you want to write a script creates and whatever implicit objects or directives, anything, right, then obviously you have to have your servlet container. And servlet container will be there in your server. It can be Tomcat, it can be WebLogic, JBoss, or anything, right? There actually you will be working on your things, right? Now for that, let me just create a new page, So here we have a web.xml. So whenever we talk about config or configs or servlet context or some servlet configs, right? So we are actually referring to something which we are defining in my web.xml. Now here you can see that if you create any servlet, right, that servlet web configuration will be generated automatically. But it will never happen for your JSP. Right? For your JSP, you have to create your own configuration files. Yes, we will be using the same pattern. You will have to use the same servlet tag pattern, but here you have to define the same pattern you have to define. That's the only thing you have to do, right? So let me just create one JSP. So let me just say it as maybe page 4.jsp, right? And I'll be using my index itself. Let us say I'm giving it as page 4, right? So from my index, what I'm doing is whenever I click on name and password, it will go to page 4, and in this page 4, what we'll be doing here, we'll just get that details first. We'll just do some simple stuff here. Let us say I'm taking string name is equal to request dot get parameter of, we have to take a request thing which is name, right? And then you have your string password, you have to take your password which is pwd. But anyways, we have these details in our JSP. So you can just print this JSP. So as we have done in our over here, you can just print maybe outside this. Okay. So till this part is something which we have already seen. No worries about that. Now here, the thing is, let us say I want to validate I want to get the details from the web.xml. Using those parameters, I will be showing something here. Okay. So now let's go and write some servlet config here. So the servlet config always starts with servlet tag. Right. You have your servlet tag. Right. So in this servlet tag, the first tag should be your servlet name. Right. So let me just give it as some config servlet, a config ex, config example, right? Because we are going to see the object called config, right? And then the servlet class. So here we used to give servlet class, if you remember, and we used to mention some servlet class name. But as we are going to define a JSP, right? So we should not give servlet class, rather we should give something called JSP file name, right? The tag which comes over here is JSP file, and you have to take up the actual name of a JSP, which is If it is a page 4, just take this page 4. You will have your slash and your page 4. Now this is where you are actually mentioning that okay, this tag, which is nice server tag called config ex, now will actually refer to your page4.jsp. Now this is your server tag of your JSP, and then obviously you have to write a mapping. Right? Your mapping should be, the name should be same, which is servlet name. Let's take the same name, right? And then you have URL packing. So URL packing will be same. URL packing, you have to give here. I don't have to give the JSP. You can directly give something called page 4, because it will take up the internal servlet context of your page. Now this is how we write a config of JSP inside a web app, right? Now let's get into the actual business here. So how can we actually write a servlet config here? The same thing. How we used to write servlet config? We used to write a init params, right? The same thing will be used, which is we have an init param, then we have init param, what's happening here? Come on, man. And then you have your oh, okay, sorry, there was some problem there. Perfect. You have your parameter name. Let's take an ID or something, username maybe. I want to have I want to give the username as my parameter and a value. Let us say something, some string. This is my first init param, and if you want to define multiple, same way you have to define your multiple names. Let us say password, and let me give the param value as something 1, 2, 3. Okay. So these are you mention init params inside your servlet tag, right? Where you have a servlet name, and in case of servlet class, which we used to write before, right? So you have to mention your JSP file name, right? So your servlet container will take care of this. So whenever anyone calls this JSP page, immediately it knows that okay, these parameters are only for this JSP page, right? We cannot use this. How? Because even in servlets, we used to have these init params which can be used only in that servlet. We cannot share this with other servlets, right? Same way it happens in JSP, right? So these are we write the servlet config for our JSP. Now here, let us read those things first. Now how we're gonna read here is, let us say string, let me take it as config something, config name, username. The thing what we actually mentioned in config. So here we have to use a direct object called config dot get init param. So from here everything is same. Get init param of, you have your init param. So you have to get your actual key, init param key of your thing. There is how you can get. And the same way, let's speed up password, which is your config password is equal to, you have your config dot get init param of your password. Now password field, let's go back here, copy this and paste it. Now these are we can read. Now let's print up this. Config parameters. We have a config username, let us say we want to define a password inside this config braces rather. Into scheme config password. Right? Perfect. So that is a config username and config password we get. So when we actually move from index.jsp to page4.jsp, right? So anyways, still here what we are doing here is we are actually reading the data which we are getting from the query string, and after that we are reading data from config file. Look, let's print this and we'll see how it goes. Okay. Now let us run this page now. Let me restart, recompile the page, restart the server, go back here, run this up. Okay. Now here let us say I'm giving some ABC again and 1, 2, 3. Click on go. Now you can see it's 1, 2, 3 and config parameters came as null and null. Why? So you have your page4.jsp here, and we mentioned now read params as we compile in my page 4. We just gave the same name here, solid mapping. So we are using the config get init parameter. So everything is same. We're getting this, we're getting this parameter. So we are reading it from the config. Let me just restart the server. Maybe run this again. Start it. No. It says resource not available here. So I have my welcome index.jsp. I'm getting it here. Okay. So ABC and we have some password. Click on go. Come on, when I just get now here. Page 4 here. It comes to page 4. After the data. So till this part everything is fine. And config parameters. Config parameters. We've got XML. So everything is correct. Let me remove the JSP once. Restart this. JSP file here, we have servlet URL pattern, we have URL pattern, you can just give this, or you can just give JSP2. That's fine, you don't have to. I don't think you don't have to do that. Okay, if you just check this. Okay, we're getting it up. Every time we change everything. Fine, no issues. Okay, so yeah. So here the conclusion is that you should also use your pattern as .jsp, right? So because normally it will take directly as it will actually take it directly, but I don't know why it is. Okay. So maybe we have created this project in module 2.5 maybe. Let me just create JSP. Let us just check quickly. Dynamic view project. Web JSPs 1, or let us say 3.0, which we are going to use is dynamic web module of 3.0. Right, click on next, and finish. Let me just check the same thing over here. So in this web module, what I'm going to do here is let me just copy these two pages here, and in my web INF. So let me copy these things. So let mapping. Let me close all. So what's wrong here? Web app. Okay, we don't need web app. So web app is missing here. So why hasn't went out? Doesn't matter. Let me copy this last step, which is solid mapping and web app over here. That's what is missing. Perfect. Now here we have this web module, which is my 3.0 web module, right? Now that web module, you can actually see that it will be using the wrap of 3.0, right? Version 2.0. So the old one we were using was 2.5, right? You remember, I hope you remember this web module. So let us see whether it works into 3.0, right? Let me just go back here and just say URL pattern as no JSP, and clean the project. Now we are going to run this project now, index.jsp. Okay, I want to use the same server. Finish. Okay, now you can see we are in web JSP 30 guys, right? Now let me give some username and password. Click on go. It says none. Come on, man. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's create a brand new index pages here. Index.jsp and JSP file. Here's one.jsp. And in this index one, let me just copy this code. Simple form code. In my page one, let me copy this thing. Yeah. So this web.xml we have unit params, we have let me give it as JSP. Right? I'm not giving JSP here. Right? And in my page dot, okay, we have to give page 1 here. Right? Just gave it as page 1. Recompile this. Restart your server. So here let me give some name. Uh-oh. Your JSPs 30. It will take you to index. Current found. Restart. Okay, seems it has some port problem. Let us do one thing. Let me just click on restart Eclipse.
Hello, Shri.
Yeah, Rajna.
Hello.
Hello.
Shri. Yeah, I was also getting the same error 2 days ago. So
Yeah, because
times
what happens is, see, sometimes when you try to save TCAT again, right? The problem is, we were actually working on 4 port, right? If this port is locked, right, then you won't be able to start your server. That was the problem. It is a port problem. So once you refresh your Eclipse, right, which means you're actually killing all the port instances you have. Right? Now if I start this, let's see to start up. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, Johnny? Johnny?
Are you recording this session?
Yes, Johnny, I'm recording this, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm recording this, yeah. Okay, so now, maybe one more thing is, see, again it came, right? Because previously when we started, right, it was starting slowly and we thought that, again I have to start. So when you click on that again, you can see that some of the ports, which is this, were already in use and you are trying to create one more process to access it again, right? So that's what it gives. So that's why you should, whenever you start it, right, you should stop that until it stops, wait, stop, click on start. Now it says starting and it goes to started, right? Now you can actually go to this 30, right click, go to this, start this, and you'll get it, okay? No worries. Click on go, it gives null, okay? So page 1 is here, .jsp. So restart my server. Fine. Okay, even module, it is taking, it has direct JSP function. Don't worry. So wherever it is JSP, I don't try to give the its servlet name. Maybe it is not taking its stream. Maybe they have removed it, maybe, right? In the newer ones, because mostly we always go for database and mostly other things. In case of JSP, that's why we got this. Okay. So these are the doing configuration where you will be giving your JSP, right? In a URL pattern. Don't forget to give complete JSP extension and in your JSP file too, right? And you'll get all the configurations you want. Right. So that is about your config object, which is a config object, and This config object works the same way in the 2.5 module and also in 3.0. Okay, let us continue working in 3.0 itself, because this is something which is latest. And anyways, if you, whatever you have in 2.5, everything will be there in 3.0. There is no bigger change. Right, and now let's go to the next one, which is application object, implicit object. And so this application implicit object is same as our servlet context. If you remember servlet context, right? So servlet context here, we'll have to use the same configuration file again, but what we'll be doing here is we'll have to define a servlet context outside the servlet tag. Right? So that's what it is. So here you can just define a context name. Okay, let me take it as some ID. This is my name. The value, let's take it as something, some ABC or some bigger value. Okay? So this is the ID. Now this context param is something which you have to define outside all the servlet tags or anything. And this context param is something which can be used by any JSP or any servlet as such. Right? Right? So that's what it is. So how can we use this context param is in this way again. So let me just create one more subdivision here. And here you can just write it out as string, let's say context ID is equal to. So now we have to use something called application. You can see application is an object which is implicit object of a direct type called servlet context, right? Which means we are actually getting a direct object of that, right? And dot we have get init param of your ID. Now these are we can actually get from context param. We'll just create one more page and we'll see whether it is persisted or we can actually access this in next page, right? No worry about that. Now here we'll just write out dot out dot print ln of context param the ID. So this is our ID which we are actually getting from context param. Let me run this once. We start this server. JSPs 30. So index.jsp. Now let me give some any password here. Click on go. Now you can see that you will get your context param. So this context param is same as a context param which we have learned. Servlet context, right? Is same as a servlet context which we have learned in servlets, right? And that servlet context we have to define outside all the servlet tags in my web.xml, and this will be accessible everywhere. If you want to define more context params, you cannot define in one. You have to define one more context param of your own, right? Where you will be getting your param name. Let's say this is some place, right? And your param value, right? Let's say it's some US, right? And maybe in my page one I've read this. Maybe I'll also read my place. Okay. Application dot get init parameter of place, right? And maybe I'll just see it as right. So this is my place. So let's go back and refresh. You can see place as none right now. So I've taken it as place here, context param, and place here. Okay, and I'll have to restart the thing because it's a change in web.xml. and get back to page 1. Give something, click on go, now you can see place, right? So previously why we got null is we were on the same page and we refreshed it, which means my container, which is servlet container in my Tomcat, didn't restart it, right? It has to get refreshed. So unless I get refresh it, so whenever I try to access my context param of place, right, it will not be loaded. That's why we got it null. Okay. So that is what is a context param. Now let's go to the next page and we'll see whether you are able to access all, right? So let me just create one more anchor element here. So your hyper reference is, so let me create one more page. So let us call it as page 2.jsp, right? And in here, what we're going to do, let me just copy this and paste it here, because same thing should work, right? This is my page 2. Now here, let me give page 2.jsp, just say go to next, right? So this is my anchor element I have defined. When I click on this, it will go to page 2, and in page 2 what it is going to do, we are going to read the same parameters and it will show up. Now in the same, let us just see whether the context params, we are able to read the context param. It should not, but let us see what happens here. When I actually even try to access the context params, the servlet config params, which is specific to the JSP, right? Which is init params. If I try to get that, it should not be accessible from your next JSP, right? Let's go back and see. Now here, let me do something. Click on go. Now this is my second first page where I've read it, and it is my config parameters and this is my context parameters, right? And when I click on go next, now you can see you will never be able to read your servlet context of some other page. You get it null, but you will be able to read your context parameters as such, right? So this is about how we read the data and using your context config object and application object. Very important object, which is these two. Now here, if you remember, we also have something else which is break here, one more scriptlet maybe, which is your enumeration type. You can actually get everything, all the parameters at once. Right? We have already seen this. Okay, this will be same even for your config, init params or context params, doesn't matter, right? Where you can actually get all the enumeration and obj, right? Now you can get everything you want from here. If you don't know the tag and all that, you can actually get everything and you can read them. Now here, how can I do that? I can just say while lobj enum, it was lobj enum dot, you have something called has more elements, right? Now if I have more elements, I just want to show that. So let me just take it out. I'll just say key, so which will come to certain value. So let me just keep it out, and here I have to get my keys and values. So string, let me just take it as lstr key is equal to lobj enum dot, you have something called next element, right? Next element, which is an object, right? Just say toString, right? This is a key. And how can you get a value? lstr value is equal to, as you have your key with you, right? So as you have your key with you, now you can directly say that your application dot get init param of your LSTR key. So here you can actually get your key and the value irrespective of whether you know that or not, right? So let me just take this up, paste it here, and this pattern will be same even for your config, right? If you want to read all the configs which you have, right, you can actually read them using your enumeration, right? It will be same. Let me rebuild this project. Restart the server. Go back here. Now give some data here. Click on go. Right? Now we have it here. So we have done that part in the second page, right? No worry. Now you can see key value. Okay. Let me give some break here. Click on go. Now you can see key and value of all your context, solid context parameters, right? You will be able to read everything. Now with this, if you want any key, if you want to match up something, you can match up and you can read. So that is all about you have in your config and application object of your under list objects, right? And there something which is very important again. Now you can use this for some of your things if you want to define. Now as I said, usually you are saying how can I actually save a path, right? You may take the path as solid context param, right? Param name will be path and give the path here, right? And in your JSP you can actually get the path in this way, right? In using your application context, right? Because why I am asking you to save that path in a web.xml in context param is that path actually can be read from any JSP, right? So that's why you should not go for read param. If you give it in config, solid config, then only one JSP wherever you are defining will be able to read. So that's why you can just make it global so that it will be accessible from anywhere you want in JSPs, right? So maybe you can follow this pattern to, okay? Yeah. Okay, so let's wind up here. So this will be, if you have 4 different pages, as I said, you have to, so first page is login page and remaining page is something else. If I try to access the last page directly, you should check whether your user is in session or not. If the session is empty, you should immediately redirect back to a login. Right, so you can. So after tomorrow's class, you can just you may be good enough to go. Right. So that is our page we'll see these things tomorrow. Mostly on session page context. You don't need this page. Page is something which is duplicated. And then very important thing which is we'll see the exception. Right. So we'll continue this.